Tuesday morning. It's McCollum on Business. I'm Stephen McCollum, and for the next 30 minutes or so, I'm going to get you updated on what's happening around the business world. Of course, we look at the market watch, stocks we're paying attention to, plus all the local and national stories that you need to know here on this Tuesday after a 3-day weekend as well. Now, there's a lot to talk about, sort of, out there. Of course, the big news is we're kind of waiting for the conclusion. Is there a conclusion to the Iran war? Some retaliatory strikes happened yesterday here over in the Middle East, but they still say there's ceasefires talks going on. That's kind of what's judging the market here, including oil up about 3% here this morning here on this Tuesday, all because Iran says they're going to do retaliatory strikes after the U.S. did their strikes yesterday. Their retaliatory strikes yesterday. So retaliatory strikes on retaliatory strikes coming up. Oil's up to 3% here this morning as well. And let's get into that market watch. We're going to talk about tech coming up later on in the show and look at some stocks, but tech is rallying today as well. Well, everything right now, it's kind of, this is incorrect graphs here that we got on your screen. Obviously, the site we use isn't correct. So no biggie. We'll just tell you here. Ignore what you see on your screen here. Dow Jones is up 91 points right now, 50,671. So the totals are correct. The numbers on the right, the down or up numbers, are incorrect. So Dow Jones is at 50,671 today. S&P 500 is up 55 points to 75.29. The Nasdaq's up 312 points to 26,656. The Russell 2K is up 40 points this morning, 29.10 as of right now. Bitcoin, that is correct there. That number, 77,106 as well. So what we're looking at this morning here on our end, the site we use, TradingView, the up-down number is wrong, but the actual dollar amounts in terms of what the indexes are at are correct roughly here today as well out there. Stocks we are paying attention to. Well, first one, AutoZone. Get in the zone. AutoZone. 8.71% down here this morning. Yeah, they are taking a big hit because their CEO came out and said international sales were challenged in the most recent quarter. They say domestic sales continue to do well, though, for AutoZone. They posted third quarter revenue of $4.84 billion, while the estimate out there was $4.86 billion, so just missed that number. Quarterly earnings of $38.07 per share did exceed the expectation level. That was only $36.22. So international sales bogging down AutoZone today. They're down 8.65% right now. And then let's look at pharmaceutical stocks, specifically Eli Lilly. They've been making a lot of moves lately. They're down 0.09% as of right now here on this market. Well, they said they're acquiring 3 companies out there for about $4 billion to buy these 3 companies. Cuevo Inc., Limitech Biologists AG, and Vaccine Company are the 3 companies. They're going to build, Eli Lilly wants to build its infectious diseases portfolio. As I said, about a $4 billion purchase price for these 3 individual companies, $4 billion total. And Eli Lilly basically trending it even here today based off of that news as well. And then let's go have a little fun here. Let's talk a little Ferrari out there. How about this move that's happened? Ferrari's down 4.41% on the U.S. stock market. This is the U.S. version of their stock here as well. Well, we know, right? Ferrari, luxury car maker out of Italy. They're down today 4.44%. Why? They launched its first fully electric vehicle. That's the reason why they're down today. They released it at a venue in Rome. The car is called Luce, Luce, all-electric Ferrari, and their stock went down 4.43% based off of that announcement and unveiling of that new electric car out there. I do find that kind of funny. They're all ready to tout this thing, and everybody went, nope. Later on when we come back, I told you tech stocks are rallying here today. Well, we will look at some of those semiconductor stocks. Micron, the big one out there, everybody's paying attention to, but Qualcomm and even AMD, Advanced Micro Devices, we'll look at them as well. When we look at the stock market, when we come back here in just a little bit, but I told you the big news here is the market is just kind of waiting. Iran deal supposedly is near. Everybody's kind of waiting for those results to come out and things to that aspect. Brent oil has jumped this morning 3% based off of the Iran does vow to retaliate for the U.S. retaliation that they had yesterday as well out there. So we'll go into some corporate stories that you need to know here today as well while we wait for that government side of things to kind of affect the markets out there. But interesting move here, BP, which has struggled over the last several years as an oil company. Well, they ousted their chairman, surprisingly, over what they called serious concerns related to, quote, important government standards, oversight, and conduct, unquote. Yeah. Sounds like he was doing some things the company didn't like. Very abrupt, very unexpected here as well. Albert Manifold has been appointed to the position just late last year, October of last year, no less. And now he's already out. BP's board names Ian Tyler as interim chair, effective immediately. The search for a new chair is officially underway. I have to see how fast they get that over there. Now, BP, British Petroleum, is their company name. They're based in London. They're what you call a super major. Yeah, they're one of the 5 largest oil production and exploration companies in the world, and that's based off of revenue and profit that they make. They maintain operations in 60 countries out there, and they've struggled. They were the Event Horizon company, if you've seen that movie or know the story, back in, what was that, 2011? They're ripe for takeover. There's some rumors of them, being taken over by some larger companies out there. And all of a sudden now the CEO, boom, out of a job right this morning as well, immediately removed from his position. So oil companies, it's right, all based around oil. Oil has been up 3% today as well, and still making that move out there. And then this is a story on marketing, and it'll be a lesson to you here on a Tuesday for you marketing people out there. We're going to go over to South Korea here for this marketing lesson. Well, there's a retail tycoon over there. His name is Chung Yong-jin. He has had to go on TV and publicly, repeatedly now, issue a apology. Now, he did it this morning, a second apology in the last 2 weeks. Why? Well, South Korean Starbucks local operations face a backlash because they did a recent marketing campaign that was not perceived nicely in that country. This marketing campaign is perceived as mocking victims of a bloody military crackdown on pro-democracy day protesters back in 1980. And you see this gentleman right there. He bowed 3 times in his apology here, the second one. He is the chairman of the Shinseng Group. They own a 67.5% stake in Starbucks Korea. As I said, he bowed 3 times during a televised statement. He pleaded for forgiveness from the families of democracy activists killed by the country's former military dictatorship. And he also is asking for, obviously, forgiveness from the broader public because the outcry has been amazing about this. Well, South Korea's Starbucks, they sparked public outrage when it attempted to promote a large size of tumbler that they were calling a tank. They declared May 18th to May 18th to be Tank Day out there. Well, here's the problem with it, folks. And if you're from South Korea, you should know this date. That's an anniversary of a democratic uprising in the southern city of Gwangju that was brutally suppressed by troops, tanks, and helicopters, killing and injuring hundreds of people in those rising up and squashing those protests. And they named it Tank Day, folks. Same day. The campaign compounded outrage because they used the slogan, quote, "thwack it on the table," unquote. Many are reading that into a reference of the notorious 1987 police statement that attempted to cover up the tortured death of student activist Park Jong-choi. Yeah, police claim then that Park died suddenly after investigators hit the desk with a thwack. Yeah, yeah. Double whammy here in marketing faux pas. The promotion was met with immediate outrage, no shocker there. And within hours, yeah, it was canceled here by the company, and it fired their chief executive of Starbucks Korea as well. Police also opened an investigation based on complaints by families of the people killed at Gwangju. And interesting enough, people inside they say there's no evidence of inside anybody inside the company, you know, pushing this agenda, pro-military agenda on the people. But also, many people within the company that were kind of involved in this refused to give up their phones to investigators as well. So, yeah, marketing problems galore coming. Now, this is Starbucks Korea, and it's not Starbucks itself. It's the company that owns the rights to Starbucks Korea having these problems. But I do find it an interesting tale of marketing gone wrong over there as well. So yeah, let's come back to the United States here as well. And a group of more than 30 state attorney generals, 30, they've asked the court to officially break up that Live Nation and Ticketmaster. This is still going on for this company as well. A jury found last month that the ticketing giants held an illegal monopoly in the live entertainment industry. You might say, well, I thought this was settled. It was settled at the federal level with the DOJ. Many states did not go along with that. We'll give you the backstory here coming up, but the 30 states are seeking an order that would require Live Nation to divest Ticketmaster in whole, in addition to pushing for the divestment of a sufficient number of large amphitheaters that are actually owned by Ticketmaster or Live Nation also. They're also asking for the court to block the enforcement of some exclusivity provisions in Ticketmaster's prior contracts, limit future exclusive ticketing agreements, and restrict Live Nation's ability to tie access to venues to its promotion services. Live Nation, no shocker here, they push back on the state's request for a breakup. They're arguing that the quote jury verdict in this case cannot support a request for divesting Ticketmaster from Live Nation, unquote. Even though the jury said you're an illegal monopoly. So remember, this is the case that was initially led by the Justice Department. Well, it was thrown kind of into what's going to happen moving forward early in that trial process. That was when the DOJ reached a settlement with Live Nation and Ticketmaster, which are one company. Under that settlement, Live Nation agreed to divest from 13 exclusive booking agreements with amphitheaters, in addition to opening venues to all promoters, allowing them to distribute 50% of the tickets and capping ticketing service fees at 15%. That was a settlement with the federal government. Dozens of states, as you found out here, right, have opted not to join the settlement. They continued with the trial, arguing that agreement would benefit Live Nation at the expense of consumers. So that's still going on for these two companies. They're still battling it out. Probably thought they were scot-free after the federal government was settled. It turns out they're not. Still battling it out there as well for these two companies. Now let's go. Basically, this is an overseas company here. They're Swedish, but we use them a lot here in America. And we're talking about Spotify out there. Spotify said earlier today it's rolling out narrated articles from top publications. Things like Rolling Stones, The Atlantic, Vogue, Variety, Vanity Fair even is confirmed for its audiobook users. Spotify is trying to diversify its content on their service. They will offer more than 650 long-form magazine articles in the English language to users with access to their audiobook side of their company. So they're bringing in more content on its streaming platform. They want to boost user engagement and then better compete with AI music. Startups, things like Udio, Sono as well. But even they want to compete more with larger podcast rivals. That's YouTube and Netflix, for instance, as well. Spotify co-CEO Alex Nordstrom said recently the company has already captured about 20% of the audiobooks market here in the United States. So this curated collection of narrated articles, they're produced by Spotify's in-house audiobooks team. It'll be under 2 hours in length as well. So not long. We're not talking long things here. Spotify said premium subscribers can access these articles as part of their monthly audiobooks allowance. And it gives free users the option to purchase individual articles for $1.99. How much is buying it online is the bigger question, right? So they want to bring shorter form content into Spotify, and they want to meet audiences where they are to help build healthy listening habits, as well as ultimately growing engagement with books over time, according to Spotify out there. Since launching audiobooks just over 2 years ago, Spotify has expanded the offering into 22 markets. Obviously, the US being a big one for those markets as well. So, last week, Spotify announced a deal with Universal Music Group. They're going to let subscribers create AI generated covers and remixes of tracks by some of that specific label's artists. They also unveiled Reserved through a partnership with Live Nation Entertainment, which we just talked about on the breakup side, right? Well, that lets eligible premium subscribers buy up to 2 tickets to their favorite artist concerts before they're even offered to the general public for sale out there. So Spotify making a lot of moves right now. I'm not an audiobook guy. I'd rather read the book, but I know how big of a market that is out there as well. So interesting trends happening out there, all led by Gen Z of all people. And, about 10 years ago, you guys will remember this if you're a certain age, a brand called LaCroix, yeah, the seltzer, they began to skyrocket. And then you just saw all the fab of, right, flavored seltzers hitting the market after that. The flavored seltzers were everywhere, literally, T-shirts and everything. But the era of bubbles, it looks like it's winding down officially now, and they call it seltzer fatigue. It even has a term. Non-carbonated drinks, things like Liquid Death, Surfside iced teas, for instance, well, they're taking the spotlight away. Now, seltzers aren't going to go away, or carbonated beverages, they're not going to go away at all. Soda, for instance. But the growth has slowed. Generation Z is the generation increasingly seeking out new options. They want them without bubbles, and beverage companies focus more of their innovation efforts on fizz free drinks. Not that the bubbles are necessarily bad for you, but it does get attributed to drinks like soda and non healthy drinks when the carbonation's fuzzy, at least, and what Gen Z is saying out there. Malt based hard liquors, that includes that's like White Claw, for instance. They saw volume drop 1.1% in the year ending April 26th compared to that year ago. And we get all that data from Circana, who does research on these types of sales. Ready to drink premix cocktails, they saw volume grow 46.4% in that same time period. So you see where the trends are going. By the way, Surfside, Sun Cruiser, Buzz Balls, if I could say it properly. Those were all fueling that growth there, 46.4% out there as well. Cutwater is another one. I believe that was the Anheuser-Busch one out there. Those have both carbonated and non-carbonated options in their palettes as well. Gen Z wants to try new products. Older generations show how brand loyalty to their favorite beer and cocktail. Younger consumers, they don't have favorites. They want what makes them what they like. They'll be more than happy to try something new and move on from something out there. Gen Z is just a roaming group of nomads when it comes to purchasing things. Much of the driving force behind the switch from bubbly to non-carbonated drinks is coming from that Gen Z. As I said, it's typically defined as people born between 97 and 2012. Over their lifetime, soda consumption has dropped dramatically from its peak in 1998. Why? Well, reusable water bottles are all part of a staple accessory for this group. They have a plethora of new drinks like refreshers. Dirty sodas are a big craze because of Gen Zs as well out there. So, new trend happening. Get on board, I guess. If you like the non-carbonated drinks out there, there you go. Being led by the younger generations out there. And when we come back here at McCollum on Business, we keep the business show rolling. Of course, we look into this market again. We're going to look at those chip stocks, tech stocks out there. Of course, local stories that you need to know as well. And we're going to end with somebody trying to become more family friendly. We'll talk about that as well. And I got a hint for you. It revolves around food. Come on back. It's McCollum on Business, Tuesday edition. And we're back here, McCollum on Business, Tuesday edition. We got to remember, I had a 3-day weekend here. Remember, it's Tuesday here today. As soon as we're done here, we get this show up on demand, Robot TV, YouTube, TME Media AZ, as well as Rumble. Rumble.com/user/TME Media, where you can find it on Rumble. Follow TME Media AZ as well on X. That's our parent company. It did some postings over the weekend, letting you know our schedule here with the 3-day weekend. Hopefully you had a 3-day weekend. If not, and your boss made you work there, well, let me know next time. I'll send them a note saying you should be allowed to have the day off as well. But we appreciate you joining us here this morning, as well as we got a busy week ahead of us here around the markets. Of course, on TME Media AZ, catching us live here. You can get on the chat as well. Like Papa Mike says, whoo, screen had me a bit worried, meaning the numbers at the beginning. We'll see if the company we use to get us the data thing is updated here in just a minute. But don't forget, all of our shows are on that YouTube page, as well as Robot TV on demand, TME Media AZ on YouTube, Rumble as well. All of our programming's over there, including The Real Matrix is on Rumble only. Right, go to rumble.com/user/TME Media. There is a little menu on the top there. It says live channels is one of them. Click on channels and you can go to specifically to the show you want to watch. The main page there is just as they're uploaded, things get pushed around. So make sure you're utilizing that channel button. Free podcast for The Real Matrix as well. Just go to your favorite podcast system, search The Real Matrix, Angry Patriot. Come right up for you as well. The Angry Patriot is very thankful of all of you that catch his shows every Friday at noon on Rumble and, of course, on the free podcast system as well. Last week's episode about data centers is up there for you as well. And then starting this week, we're going to go into a Charlie Kirk series here for surrounding not just Charlie Kirk, but Trump Turning Point USA, as well as Erica Kirk. It's going to be a multi-episode here coming your way here over several weeks. So catch that coming up Friday at noon. As soon as we're done here, we go to the main event. Me and 17-year NFL veteran Del Hillis get you updated on the sports world over the 3-day weekend. We got NBA Final. I already know one of the people in that, one of the teams. Hockey, domination in one series in that hockey as well. We'll talk about all of that, plus your local stories like the Diamondbacks, etc. out there. So come and join us live on YouTube or Rumble, or YouTube or Robot TV as well. On demand, though, Rumble and YouTube later in the day, along with Robot TV. With all that being said, pit stop this week as well. Great numbers in last week's show, even though it did come out a couple days late. Back to our normal schedule this week for for the pit stop. So follow that and look for that on demand as well. And that's why you follow TME Media AZ or the Pit Stop Talk on X. Get the updates on the shows, etc., on those pages. Kind of an interesting racing weekend as well. We'll have to talk about coming up. And with all that, let's get back into the Market Watch. I told you earlier, Papa Mike said, woo, thought I was worried. Yeah, so ignore the right column of numbers here, folks. I can tell you that. That has to do with the software that we use to put this up. The Dow Jones, it did turn negative on us, but it's only 21 points down right now. It's trading. The numbers in the middle that the indexes are trading on are correct. 50,556 is what the Dow Jones is trading at right now. It is down about 20 points as we are talking. Again, the numbers on the right there are wrong. Then the S&P 500, same thing, trading at the 75.31 right now. It's up 59 points for the S&P 500. NASDAQ's up 352 points. Yeah, tech rally happening on the NASDAQ right now and the S&P 500. NASDAQ's at 26,691. The Russell 2K, the small cap index, is trading at 2911 right now. That's up 52 points here today off of the market opening about an hour ago right now as well. Bitcoin is at 77,890 for Bitcoin, kind of forcing its way up here as the day goes on around the market. They are hoping an Iran deal is near. The rumors are that it is coming up, and then those retaliatory strikes happened yesterday. Brent oil is up about 3% here today, still here on the market. We'll see how that affects it coming up as well. Stocks that we are paying attention to right now, I told you, we're going to look at chip stocks here as well. Micron Technology is the first one that we're going to look at. They're up 14.65% here today. All of this is on hopes that the Iran war would soon come to an end. That's what they're attributing these tech stocks, these chip stocks going up here today. Qualcomm's the next one we're going to look at as well. Qualcomm's up 3%. Micron Technology is the leader up here at that 14.56%. Finally, we're going to look at AMD, Advanced Micro Devices. They're up about 5.28% right now as well. So chip stocks driving that NASDAQ and S&P 500 up here today, as you saw there on the numbers there in terms of the stock market. Let's get into some local stories here as well. An interesting story here saw over the weekend. Arizona farmers, they sold about $1.8 billion worth of cattle last year. That's 2024 year. This is all numbers that we get from the U.S. Department of Agriculture. That's an increase of about $300 million compared to 2024. Whew. Now, we know the price of beef rose nationally, about $9.64 per pound on average in April. That's up 13% from a year ago. Now, that's driven by high demand, coupled with the smallest number of cattle in the U.S. in the last 75 years. We've talked about that a lot here on McCollum on Business over the last 6 to 8 months or so. Beef production is expected to keep falling nationally for the rest of the year and even into 2027. And I've told you before, they've learned that we will buy beef prices at these elevated prices. These prices aren't going to fall, even when beef production levels do go up and meet demand. We're telling them we're more than happy to pay these prices, is what they're conditioning us on right now. But we know despite that production drop, the American Farm Bureau projects that demand will actually continue to go up for beef. Cattle will get heavier. Meaningful beef will be fattier as well, as what the trends will go towards coming up on the beef side. But the Arizona, selling a lot of beef last year as well here in the 2025 year for those farmers. $1.8 billion, folks. Whew. A lot of beef. Amcor Technology, we've talked about them before. They had that big plant up there in Peoria that they're building. Well, now they're expanding that out there. Amcor Technology is the company. They're expanding that $7 billion plant up there in Peoria. Well, they've expanded it up to 171 acres after a land purchase that they did last week. It was at 104 acres before. First major development to take shape in that planned economic development hub. They're calling it the Peoria Innovation Core. If you remember us talking about this in the past. 2 years ago, the city of Peoria acquired rights to develop 7,341 acres of that state trust land. This is up in that 303 corridor. So this is Lone Mountain Parkway to State Route 74, if you know the area. Peoria's Economic Development Services Director, they came out and said that the primary goal of the planned community district, well, they want to increase local employment in those areas. Amcor has been headquartered in Arizona since 2005. What do they do? Well, chip type stuff, designs, packages, tests, semiconductors for other companies is what they do. They broke ground on this Peoria facility back in October. All right, so now you got a big semiconductor presence up there in Peoria as well. And then right down the road from there, a few miles, is that TSMC, Taiwan Semiconductor Building, a few minutes east of this area in Peoria as well. So you got Intel down in Chandler, TSMC up in North Phoenix, Amcor over in Peoria, kind of the staple areas here for those big, large facilities. They say Amcor does that this expansion is going to bring 3,000 high paying jobs to the area. Production is slated to begin in 2028 once the expansion and buildings are built up in that area for Amcor Technologies. Now, interesting thing here, let's go to the opposite side of town here and let's look at Mesa Gateway Airport. I had no idea this was even a real thing until I saw it over the weekend. The Federal Aviation Administration, that would be the FAA, they're going to assume management of the air traffic control tower at Mesa Gateway Airport. Yeah, that's not run by the FAA, folks, even though there's commercial airlines that fly out of that airport. Mesa was selected as part of a new program to transition high activity air traffic control towers that is staffed by contractors, well, converted over to direct AAA oversight and operation. Yeah. On May 19th, the FAA announced Mesa Gateway Airport and then Bozeman Yellowstone International Airport up there in Montana. Well, they said that's going to be the first two airports to enter the program. This is expected to take between 2 to 4 years to fully convert over to the FAA running those towers. Gateway Airport is the busiest contract tower in the United States, more than 300,000 operations per year. The airspace above Gateway Complex deals with a variety of operators. You know, a lot of commercial flights out of there and even military, even to this date as well. Firefighting, the hotshot planes that fly all those that red dye to knock down those flame retardants, those fly out of that area. A lot of student training out there as well. I know the helicopter school, and then private jets, huge out there also at Mesa Gateway. Midwest ATC is the company contracted to manage air traffic at Gateway Airport currently. And according to the FAA, contract towers represent 51% of air traffic control towers within the United States. Yep. A spokesperson for Gateway Airport came out and said this is the first time ever the FAA has made this transition. The airport actually lobbied for Congress to change the law and allow the FAA to take over. The plan was to build a new air traffic control tower at the airport and then have the FAA take over and run the airport as well. When the 2018 FAA reauthorization bill did pass, it allowed Gateway to construct that new $30 million FAA compliant tower, and it was funded by the federal government, by the way. That opened back in 2023. After the tower was complete, the airport continued to lobby for change. The 2024 FAA reauthorization bill created a program to allow airports to actually transition to FAA oversight. The airport said part of the motivation for the change, well, they want to bring more staffing consistency to the busy airport. Contract controllers are held to the same training requirements and mandatory retirement age of 56 as FAA controllers. But most contract controllers are former military controllers. What happens to them is they get out of the military. They may be too old to enter the FAA training program. They're often hired and trained by contract towers instead. Gateway is a Class Delta airspace right now. They control up to 2,500 feet above the airport. Is all they control in terms of the height? Well, they want to change that as well over the next several years. It'll take that long to change it. They want to upgrade to Class Charlie. Gateway would have control over 2 layers of airspace above the airport, which would take you up to 4,000 feet, and then 5.75 miles around the airport as well. And then they say between 1,200 and 4,000 feet, 10.5 miles around the airport is what it would go up to after the additional side of it. And this is just fascinating to me that because it's a busy airport. I live out there and we see planes taking off all the time from out there. I'm shocked at how busy it is. And it's not that it's any worse, but contracted instead of the FAA running that tower. Well, that's apparently changing coming up there in the East Valley. And then some more changes possibly coming. We'll end this kind of with a food story, but it's more about the restaurant itself. Yeah, Hooters is making that comeback, right? They were just bought by one of the largest um, people that, not the company-owned stores. They were just bought by the largest, people that ran their stores there and everything. Hooters is attempting to shift its brand image also with these changes. The CEO, Neil Kiefer, came out with an interview with People magazine. And Kiefer insisted Hooters, well, it has always been a neighborhood place, but they want to make it more friendly to everybody. Kiefer said the company is addressing its uniform standards. Well, they want to be more broadly appealing to all the customers out there, not just men. Kiefer also said the changed name was a double entendre. Well, he said it was acceptable humor back when the restaurant was started. He says not so much lately has it been. That's kind of why they're attributing the downhill trend here. But he says that type of humor is coming back. It'll be interesting to see what they do. But I just wanted to say because there are still some Hooters around. Franchisees is the word I was searching for earlier. It's just the biggest franchisees bought Hooters. They're making these changes. There's a couple here that are still franchisees, and the one at Alamo School and just off the US 60 actually is very, very successful down there and very busy. So Hooters making a comeback, trying to get you back in there and you to bring your family with you is what they're trying to do. Hey, folks, appreciate you joining us here for this Tuesday edition of McCollum on Business. Of course, we roll right into the main event here coming up as well. So come and join us there as well. Like I said, sorry about the glitch by the software company that we use for our market watch, but markets are up today. Kind of rotating back and forth in terms of the Dow, but everything else is up. So this Tuesday after a 3-day weekend starting well, even though oil is up 3%. Brent oils, we'll have to keep our eyes on that. We'll be back tomorrow, 7 a.m. Come and join us, would you? For now, let's head into the main event here at 8 o'clock. Come and join us there on YouTube, TME Media AZ.